How are we doing? There you go. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Bloomberg. So first of all, we want to say a massive thank you to Bloomberg for having us here. Thank you. We've hosted this event just ourselves a couple of times at different venues and stuff, and doing all of the stuff, the venue, the security, the food, the AV, it is not cheap, and Bloomberg are covering absolutely everything. So, massive thanks to them. Once again, we're hiring. So, if you want to work on cool stuff like this and, work in a good culture, then come and say hello. The most important announcement is that the hashtag is London React. So use that hashtag. What have I missed, Amy? Yes, next meetup is in January. We're going to have a break over Christmas. And the reason you have me, by the way, is that Stu is gallivanting off in New York on a client project. So we'll hopefully be telling you all about that quite soon, which is quite exciting. So first of all, before we get into the talks, which look really interesting, because I'm actually super interested in all of these topics, I would like to introduce Rob from Bloomberg to give you a quick sort of introduction on how Bloomberg is using React. Thank you, Rob.
Hey, hello everyone, welcome to Bloomberg. My name is Rob, and I'm a JavaScript dev at Bloomberg. And I guess a few of you are probably wondering, we normally have these meetups at Facebook. Why are we at Bloomberg? So I want to take a brief opportunity to explain a bit about our relationship with JavaScript. But first, I guess I'd like to ask, how many people here know what Bloomberg does? Okay, quite impressive, about 50%. So I'll start off by talking to those that don't know. So here it is in some pictures. We have the Bloomberg terminal is financial information and trading. So if you're ever looking on TV when the stock market does things, and you see lots of screens and people being furious, that's generally us on those screens, powering that system. What you see here in the bottom left is a picture of a very large trading floor. So that's the environment in which our customers use our product. So in terms of what is Bloomberg, what do we do? A lot of people have come across us by moving around channels on TV, and then they hit a Bloomberg TV channel. That is part of what we do, but the origin of the company really is with a product called the Bloomberg Terminal. And the company revolves around this, so it makes up the majority of our revenues. And in essence, we have always been a tech company built around this product. It was once physical, a physical terminal, whereas today it's a software product and a service. We also have, obviously, the TV, the radio, the news, but ultimately it's all about data. So in terms of what does that mean to us, our customers are dealing with transactions that are, say, tens of millions. So when people talk about, in web particularly, performance matters, performance really matters when if you don't get the trade in at the right time, the market may move and it's costing you real money. So our clients have particularly high reliability and performance requirements. It's not just about how fast they execute their workflow, but also then we have to take on all that data flowing through. So the exchanges provide us with ticks, with little pieces of information, and we're dealing with large amounts. So then moving on to what do we use JavaScript for? It's good to look at a bit of history. Where did this all start? So in 1998, Brendan Ike creates JavaScript. It was around 2003 that we first started using it. We have built full production client apps around that time, and we're looking into building something bigger. It was actually around 2006 that we first started using JavaScript in anger on the server side. So this is for building full apps, production apps, and proving that you can build reliable systems based on JavaScript. And obviously, that is a few years before Node.js came along and popularized using JavaScript on the server. So the impact of all of this is that we experienced a real boom in productivity, the kind of gains that you all see today and is the reason JavaScript is so popular. For us, it was about reducing dev cycles, but it also had side benefits of being able to orchestrate asynchronous state management in a much more natural way than before. Did it hurt performance? No. We were still able to handle from incoming requests from the client, all the server processing, and generating that app back in less than 20 milliseconds. So, these are performance figures that were mandated from senior leadership, so it means a lot to us. So today, pretty much all the apps you see on the terminal, they are driven by JavaScript. They are JavaScript app logic, JavaScript UI. And what this means is that we have a huge JavaScript code base. It's in the order of 100 million lines. And it means that we are heavily invested in JavaScript. And in return, we heavily invest in JavaScript itself. For example, one of the ways we do this is with funding. Some of the features of modern-day ECMAScript, for example, arrow functions, we have sponsored the implementation of that in V8. So we're investing in JavaScript. We're also investing in London. You may have seen there is a new office being built. So the 3,000 people that work here today will be moving in a couple of years down the road to a brand new office that is currently being built next to St. Paul's, or between St. Paul's and Bank. It's a very impressive building. I encourage you to have a look at the YouTube videos of it. And so the last message is just to say that we are hiring. In particular, we have a very important product known as IB, but you guys probably would better receive it as being like Slack, but for finance. It is the industry leader and is very important to us. So if you are interested, please come and speak to me or Graham McDermott. So thank you and enjoy the evening.
Thanks so much, Rob. Yeah, so if you don't need this office in a couple of years, then we'll take it from you, yeah? So, Inline Styles, where's Michele? There you are. Hi. Thank you very much. Let's get you set up.
Can you hear? Yeah. Just a second. Oh. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Michele. I'm a front-end developer at YPlan. We use React. I'm a member of Web Devs. Check it out. Follow me on Twitter. And most important, you should trust me because I've got the CSS in JS skill on LinkedIn. And I want to start with this tweet. Badmouthing CSS has the unfortunate side effect of driving entire communities away from React. It looks like that. It looks like if you use Inline Style, you are against the CSS and vice versa, but it's not like that. And part of me wonders if this is on purpose. And that's true, because React has always been communicated in a really, really strong way. Like, you have to mix HTML and JavaScript, CSS and JavaScript. Like, either you accept it or you are out of the game. When I started working on this presentation, I created a survey, and I asked the developer what was their feeling when they first heard about JSX and inline style from 1 to 5, and what was their feeling today. And both of them started in a like surprisingly high value. Like, I gave 1 to both. So, and JSX 2.7, inline style 2.5. But since everyone now loves JSX, no one loves inline styles. And maybe because they approach to it with the wrong mindset. And if you say like, I'm using BAM and SAS, and yeah, I'm okay with it, that's the wrong mindset. You should give it 5 minutes, try if it fits for your project, for your team, and then decide. And the second thing is you have to be prepared to unlearn everything you learned in the past 10 years, and you have to have an open mind. And most important, you should reason like you should see your application as a mix of components. Of course, if your CSS is a mess, you cannot even think about inline style. But if you use, for example, BAM, and every block is a component for you, maybe you can find inline style useful. And so let's start about like a little bit of history. Why are we here talking about inline styles today? And everything started in November 2014 when Christopher Shadow pointed out which were like the problem they found at Facebook with CSS, and how they solved all of those problems with inline styles. And a global namespace, of course, is a problem. It's really hard to define dependency between your components and your CSS. You are always super scared to eliminate like a line of CSS, and a minification of class names is hard, as well as sharing constant between the code base and the JavaScript and the CSS. If you load your CSS asynchronously, you are never sure what will happen. And it breaks the isolation, because everyone can override your style. A few months later, Colin McGill, the author of Radium, wrote a blog post like inline styles are the future. And the most important point was like, if you use inline style and you write your inline style inside your components, you can recompute the style on the client side, and that's pretty cool, because you can check if the browser supports a feature and load a CSS accordingly. This is my favorite one, The End of Global CSS by Mark Dalgleish. He started from a very, very simple point. He said, since we can import the CSS into our components, as we do for any other dependencies, why can't we like locally scope all the class names? And to be honest, in August 1996, in Netscape Communicator 4, there was the first and the only version of JSSS. And the name is important in this thing, so no one else implemented it. But let's start with inline style, because if you open the React documentation, you see something like this. And they say you define an object where every attribute is like the camel case version of the style name. You can use variable as image URL, for example, and vendor prefixes as well. And then you assign your object to the style attribute of your element, and you render it. And you can do pretty cool things like this, and super useful also. And it's pretty straightforward to write something like this. You just have a controlled input element, and as soon as the value changes, you save the value inside the state, and when the component re-renders, you use the value to calculate the font size. And this is something that you cannot do with inline styles, with the CSS. But with inline styles comes a lot of problems too. For example, pseudo classes and pseudo elements are not supported. Media queries are not supported as well. You cannot have style fallback. So for example, you cannot define display flexbox and display WebKit flexbox, because you are using a JavaScript object. Animation are not supported. You have to override the style always using important, and it breaks the separation of concerns. I'm not completely agree, but if your concerns are the technologies, yes. And debugging is really hard, as we will see later. Performance is there with a question mark, because I couldn't find a benchmark or a blog post that clearly say that the performance are worst. Of course, if you render like, I don't know, 10,000 elements, each one with its inline style, you're going to have a bigger page, but then you have like compression algorithms, and that's it. So debugging is really hard, because when you have something like this, it's really hard to find the element that you want to debug. And also, if you have a list and each element has its own style, and you change one, you're not going to change all of them. And I tried to find some real-world example, and I couldn't find. I've just found the Uniqlo website, which is an e-commerce. The US version on mobile uses a little bit of inline style. Neither Facebook and Instagram use this. So what I think is that Christopher Shajo just tried to inspire the community to find the right solution. Like CSS are here, inline styles are here. The solution will be in between. And I guess he made it because the CSS in JS revolution has started. And at some point, I said, OK, I want to have a clear idea what's going on. There are 23 libraries out there. Let me try all of them. And so I did it. And I would like to go with you through all of them, but we don't have time. So we will see just the two most popular ones and the ones that I have the chance to try on production. So the first one is Radium, and it's just a set of tools on top of inline styles. Like inline styles has some problems. Let's fix those problems. And the way you use it, you use a JavaScript object, but you use something like a class. So you define the button class, and you say the color is red. And you nest inside it the states. So it supports browser states, so hover, for example. So the button is red, and when you hover it, it becomes green. And you just assign your style to the style attribute of the element, and you use the Radium decorator. That's it. And what you're going to have is, by default, the button will have a style color red, and when you hover it, the style will become green. And this is like pretty magic, and it wraps your and the way it works, it wraps your component inside a higher order component, and it adds an event handler for each one of the states that you defined. And as soon as the event handler is triggered, it changes the state, so the component re-renders with the right style. It sounds really, really weird, but it works. And the real problem with Radium is the flash of incorrectly styled content. So if you render your application on the server side and you have a style like this, so for example, color red and green for smaller devices, you're going to have something like this, color red and media object, because on the server side, you don't have the match media API. So you're going to see the page in red, and as soon as the application bootstraps on the client side, you're going to see green if you are on a small device, of course. So green and red and then green. So that's really bad. But if you don't use server-side rendering, that's the library for you. My favorite is CSS modules. CSS module is just a CSS, a normal CSS, where each class and animation are scoped locally by default. And so, for example, you have a class like this, which says like the common class defines the color to be red. You import your CSS inside your component, and you have a style object. And this style object is going to have an attribute for each one of the classes you defined in the CSS. And you just assign it to the class name. And when you run it, you have something like this. So you have the hashed string of the class. So this is pretty cool. So you're sure that this class is unique in your application. And how do you use it? With Webpack is pretty straightforward. You can use it also with Browserify, but I don't know why. How? Sorry, no. Why also? You say to Webpack, whenever you encounter a CSS, you use the CSS loader, and the first parameter is modules. So you enable the CSS modules, and also you can define your own local indent name. So you can say, because it's really hard to debug when you have like the hash of the class name, but you can say, for example, I want the name of the class name to be like the file name, local class, and then the hash to make sure it's unique. And another super cool feature is composition. So you have a common class which says that the color is red, and you have the disabled class, and you say compose is common, and you set the opacity to be 50%. And you use it as before. You just assign the class name to disable, and what you're going to have is pretty smart, because it's going to render the two classes, the one that you assign and the one that you composed. And you can also load dependencies from external files. So for example, you can import this small class from the typography CSS. And what you're going to have is you're going to have all of the three classes. So common disable, button disable, button common, and typography small. And this is pretty cool because you can create classes just as placeholder and assign them to your element. And so then you change just the classes that they're going to compose. So you don't change your markup. You just change the classes that they compose. The classes without any style, because they are just placeholder to then render all the classes that actually apply the styles. If you want to use CSS modules with React, there is a library, of course, a React CSS modules. And you load your CSS as you did before, but you pass it to the CSS modules decorator. And instead of using class name, you use the style name attribute, and so you can use like the actual string of the class. So it's better because otherwise, if you use object, you have to use like the camel case classes. The problem with CSS modules is that you cannot have the computation on the client side because it's real CSS. So let's see if there is a reason to use inline style, at least in some cases. So as soon as you start working with React, you learn that you have a true moment for each component. So the initial state and then the state when the user interacts with it. And so in this example, the initial state is like the empty form. And if the user puts like 1 and 2 into it, it's going to see 3. And if it puts 1 and A, it's going to see not a number in red. So the state is the number, but also it's like a visual state. It's red. And writing a component like this with React is pretty straightforward. So you have 2 controlled input fields, and as soon as they change, you save their value inside the state. And when the component re-renders, you use those values to calculate the sum. And if the sum is not a number, the color is red. So if you use inline style here, you have the advantage that you see like this class, and you can exactly say what will going on here, and you can say the color is red when the number the sum is not a number. And also, if you use Jest to test your components, otherwise, yeah, Jest is like the standard testing framework for React. You just render your component into document. You grab the first value, you put 1 into it, the second, and you put 2 into it, and you test that the result is free. But if you use inline style, you can even test that you put A into the second value, and you test that the color is red. So you test also the visual state of the component. When I tell people that I work with inline style, they have also always a lot of questions. The first one is, how are designers supposed to write CSS in JavaScript? And my answer is always this one. If they can deal with Sass, they can also deal with Java. No, I'm joking, but yeah. There are just 4 simple rules to follow. So keys are the camel case version of the style. Name values are string. You use commas instead of semicolon because they are JavaScript objects. And vendor prefixes other than Microsoft begin with a capital letter. And the second question that people ask me is, what if I want to change library or framework after 14 months? And basically, you can't. In my previous company, we wrote all the CSS in Radium. Then we decided to go back to CSS, and we had to copy and paste everything. So if you write a migration tool, please tell me. And my button, this is the last question. Last but not least, because everyone is asking me this, my button has to look different according to his parent. How can I do it? In CSS, you're used to do something really, really wrong like this. And you think, I cannot do it with inline style. OK, that's good. But suppose you want to do it. So you define a button which is red, and when the button is inside the sidebar, it's going to be bold. And you can do it. You define the basic style inside your component, then you accept the styles as a property, and you merge the default style with the style that is best from the parent. And inside your sidebar, you use your button like this. But as we said, that's really wrong, because the sidebar knows how the button has to look like. And that breaks the encapsulation. So a better way to do it, and also it's better for a developer that have to work with this button, is to define all the different styles inside the button itself. So this is a real component. So if a developer works with this, OK, he can say all the different states that the button can have. So you define both style, and you accept type as a property instead of the style. and you use your button like this. So you say type, so you can use parent or context or whatever, but just the sidebar tells the button, oh, this is your type. You know how to render. And with CSS modules is even better. You define a common class which says that the color is red, and you compose the common one with the sidebar style, and you accept the type as a property. If the type exists, you use the type. Otherwise, you use common. So you can do whatever you want with CSS in JS. This is the end. A quick recap, use the right tool, no matter if it breaks the rule, no matter if you learn that mixing HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, and PHP, and MySQL and SQL is bad. And choose between inline style and local scope, because these are the two big ways you can decide to try. For example, Radium and CSS modules. And also, but you can also mix both, because you can use the style for the appearance and the inline style for the state. That's it. Have fun, because our job is the best job in the world, and we have a lot of library to play with, so enjoy. Any questions? Are you really using inline styles in production? That's a question. No, I was asking the question to myself, because otherwise my friends would have asked me. But yeah, how many of you are using inline styles? Radium? That's cool. Great. And
I know it sounds kind of crazy, but did you ever consider using scope styles in HTML within a React element?
yeah, like the standard scope.
Yeah.
But it's not supported, so.
At all?
I don't think it's supported, or just, I don't remember, but I remember just all red and just one green column on. So we can check later. Hey.
If you go back a couple of slides, you have your component that has a class .sidebar, right? Yes. No.
Here, type sidebar. No.
No, the one when you say, okay, you don't have to have the sidebar. No.
Okay, this one.
No, another one. Yeah, the previous. One more. Yeah. Here.
Okay. This is.
The next. Another one. Another one. Yes, this one.
Okay.
So in this way, okay, the sidebar doesn't know about the button, but the button knows about the sidebar.
No, the button knows how to look like.
Wife from with ball inside the sidebar. So it knows its parent.
No, you can. That's cyber because.
Yes, right. You change the name of the class, right? Instead of sidebar, ABC.
Yeah.
Okay. At this point, you go back to the problem that you don't know if you can remove or not ABC because you don't know where it's used. You're scared of remove ABC from with ball because you say, maybe it's used somewhere that I don't know.
You're right. Nice one. So forget about this talk. It's wrong.
Yeah, you were right. Only Firefox.
Okay, that's why. I don't use Firefox. And Browserify. No, I will find a solution. Okay? Any other?
Do media queries work quite well in the CSS modules?
Yeah, absolutely. CSS modules are like real CSS. Everything. Media queries are also supported with Radium. So CSS modules is real CSS with the composes. So you don't need maybe Sass or.
What's your preferred way of sharing variables between JavaScript and CSS modules?
I don't do that. No, because I use like a CSS module for the appearance and inline style for the state. So I don't.
Sometimes your inline styles may need to know.
No.
Width on the element, for example.
I don't think there is a way to share.
I was wondering if there's a best practice.
I don't think so. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Michele. Yeah, we're also trying to use CSS modules in a project. I haven't used it yet because I've been playing too much Fallout 4 to actually try. So next we have John and Peter from Music Glue. Where are you? There you are. Thank you very much.
Considering those connectors apparently look like they should fit in both ways round, I have no idea how they're supposed to work. So, hi, I'm John. This is Peter. We work for a company called Music Glue, building an e-commerce platform, which is a bit different from many others. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about the journey that we've been on, both with React, although since this is London React, and I'm not going to admit that I've spent nearly 2 years with Angular. We'll talk more about GraphQL and Relay and some of the other stuff we've been doing and the challenges that we've been facing in moving forwards with what we're trying to achieve. So, in terms of where we are and what we do, we like to think that we're this sales pitch time. Sorry, got told by marketing. But in terms of what we stand for is that we were founded by a group of artists, 4 artists, with one single belief, which is that we should try and put more money back into the pockets of the creators rather than kind of other links in the chain. Our platform is vast. It takes everything from ticketing through to discounts and bundling and chart-eligible record sales, merch, print on demand, fulfillment houses, and somehow tries to present that all in a single interface for people to interact with as a DIY platform. Currently, the people that work with it, we've got about 20,000 vendors in somewhere in the region of 120 countries, and they each have the right, because that's obviously what this is all about, to have their own presence on the internet that uniquely identifies them. It's what they stand for. And the way we currently do that is by building lots and lots of kind of website things, whether they're kind of a lighter weight, something we call a profile, which is kind of a hosted platform or something a little bit more full-featured. At the moment, this is all done via a seriously complicated set of services, of databases. At the moment, we're looking at somewhere in the region of 20 services, 6 different types of database, 6 different languages. And we're trying to consolidate all of this into a platform that we can understand and that we can work with going forwards through the next kind of 5, 6, 10 years, or 14 months, as you said, as the average time to refactor in terms of what's going on. So what we're trying to achieve is allowing people far more flexibility, and that's kind of what appealed to us about React in the first place, is that we can build almost a framework of things, and we can then give the power back to our users to kind of compose those in ways that we can't even dream about. And if they do that, then we've succeeded. Sadly, at the moment, our kind of PHP rendering stack that we use needs to be able to understand what it was that they thought about, otherwise it can't do the job. And what we're going to talk to you about today is some of the benefits we found of kind of trying to rethink our approach entirely, and also some of the challenges we've come across in trying to solve this solution from the client side rather than in a traditional kind of server model. I'll hand over to my colleague, Peter.
Thanks. So what we really want is, in order to be able to support these like flexible sites that our clients can build, we want a way to manage building these in a more maintainable way. And in order to do that, we need a richer domain model. And this is what GraphQL and Relay gives us. So what exactly do I mean by that? Well, consider something like an image. We often use that through our API. We expose it as just a string for the URL. But that's limited. We can't really do much with just a string. An image actually as a thing is something that you can resize it, you can crop it, but you can't do that with just a string. We don't want to be serving up the images that our customers upload, like 1,000 pixels on like a catalog page. We need to be able to resize these. And as I said, you can't do that with a string. We also don't know what the actual environment that this image is going to be viewed in, whether it's on mobile or whether it's going to be in the browser. So we don't know even what size we want to resize these images to until a customer actually comes along and looks at our website. So we can kind of try things like this. We could stick a query string on the end, and when the customer's browser requests this image, we fetch it off S3, resize it, and return that image back to them. And that kind of works. But we're kind of trying to shoehorn this behavior into a string. And how do we manipulate this? I mean, what if we don't want a 50 pixel width? We want 100 pixels. Well, we can do something like this. We can mess around with a string and replace 50 to 100 and so on. But we're kind of starting to fetch some data from the server and then do some processing on it and then render that as an image. And all we really want to do is just say, I just want to render a 100 pixel image here. It's, you know. So what other options are there? We could serve up a whole bunch of different sizes. Great, okay. 100 pixel image isn't in there. So yeah, we still haven't really solved the problem. So if we step back a bit, what is it that we really need to do? What do we want to do? We want a way to declare our intent. We need something richer than a string. What we need is a type. So with GraphQL, same thing. I'm saying, OK, I'm going to grab an image from this product. But we're not just working on a string now. We've got a type. We can pass in parameters here. So we can specify what the width is. We've codified the behavior that is allowed to be operated on this image. In addition to that, we also have strong typing. So if we say we want a width of medium, Relay will go, hang on, the string, no, you need to say we want a fixed 50 pixels or whatever. And it's easier to reason about because now we've got this explicit interface. So we can reason about what we're allowed to do, what operations can be performed on this type. And we've got a consistent approach to adding new parameters. So perhaps we might want to be able to blur images or crop them. These are bits I should have advanced through earlier. Let's look at another example. A country. A country is something that is represented in different places throughout our applications. And we have a whole bunch of representations of the same concept. We have a country represented as a string for the name, or the localized name, the ISO alpha 2 or alpha 3 string representations. So we've got these multiple representations of the same concept, but a country is a country no matter what. So we can unify this under a type. And then on the front end, we can pick what we need from this, but we're reasoning about the same type throughout. We don't have these, a country in one place is a name, and another place it's localized. And there's more to it. We can build on these types as well. So in many places where we have a country, we may need to fetch the associated time zones for that country. And we can grab the ISO 2 of the country, build up a query, and request from another server, say, give me back these potential time zones for this country. But because we've got a type here that's a country, we can just say, give me back the time zones for this country. And we have a collection of time zone types, which, again, we get all these benefits of types once again. We have time zones used in different places outside of countries, but it's the same type everywhere. So you've got one concept to reason about, as well as this consistent method to extend your graph. So in summary, one of the really great things with it is we can promote strings to first-class types, and they give us a richer domain that we can interact with programmatically. We have a consistent method of extending our graph, and that makes it easier to reason about. I'm going to hand back to John. He's going to talk a bit about implementing some of this.
Cheers. So obviously, when we kind of think about things on the server, then it's all very well and good. We can have a kind of a nice pure data model, but if we can't interact with that on the client in a serious and in a sensible and an effortless way, then we don't really achieve very much. And obviously, we don't need to extol the virtues of React here. Components, they're really nice, composable, declarative. There's so much to admire in terms of how we can build our client-side code. For example, let's pick another concept in the system, an address. an address has a series of fields, and okay, purists might say this should be a vcard rather than a definition list. I came from a back-end engineering environment. I don't know what these things all mean. But where we can look at this unit, we can reason about it with absolute knowledge that this represents what an address actually is. So moving forwards, we might have a customer. Well, hopefully we do have lots of customers. That's kind of the point. But this customer has an address. We've reused our address component. We've inserted it. Again, this is all very, very basic. But the key question for us is, how do we get data to this component in a simple way? Now, the answer to this for us, we've decided, is Relay. We've kind of been through the mill on this one. We started evaluating Netflix's Falcor. It's got a really cool logo font, but a slightly dubious ring around the outside of it. So we decided not to use that for that reason only. Relay, admittedly, I don't think the logo work is made. That's just joking. It's lovely. But we've got a really explicit way of declaring the data now that goes along with our view code. Back on topic. So we've expressed that we need the name on the customer. Again, as I'm sure you've all seen this beforehand. But when we move forwards, it becomes very simple to kind of fall back into a relatively traditional mode. You know, we've got some kind of controller. We've provided a lot of data. We're going to consume that data. You know, we can look in the address and we can say it needs all these attributes. We can fetch them. We can pass them in. And then we know that our address, because it's React, is going to give us back our address. But what we're trying to do kind of in a modern world is find composer interfaces that are entirely declarative all the way down. What happens here when something changes with an address? Okay, admittedly, we're probably not likely to roll out a new kind of format of postcode or something else, but we might change the field naming on a server. Instantly, we've got to be able to then find every single insertion point in the application and update it. Obviously, Relay provides something there as well. This idea of fragments, so we can declare what that kind of component needs and wrap it. The thing we've really learned, though, is that get fragment is more than just an option. It's actually essential. It's the only way you can really build scalable applications within the context of like a unified data environment. Because otherwise, all we're doing is we're breaking through back into the old habits of kind of muddling where the spheres of control are and the single responsibility principle. Instead, we take our address, we wrap it in exactly the data that we need, and then we can reason about this again. We know that what the address requires, it will get. And regardless of the scale, okay, we can predictably depend on its behavior. So in this instance, we could end up with a contract. As long as we get the fragment and we pass it back in as a prop, that address is going to do the job for us. It allows us to compose our data across the entire stack in the same way we compose our views. Now, let's think about what this actually means. We've got a few areas here of our domain where an address can be used. For example, we've got a billing address that can be used in multiple places, depending on whether we're talking about our vendors as customers or our end user customers as customers. We've got physical addresses. You know, where is the venue that band is playing at? We've got delivery addresses. Where am I going to send my t-shirt? Every single line on this graph essentially represents a point that we might need to model this. And instead of then having to represent this data in multiple places, we end up with one single thing. It's just an address. The flexibility of being able to go, OK, I'm going to load the data in lots of different contexts, billing address, delivery address, physical address, whatever it is, and depend upon the fact that as long as we pass that back in as a prop, we're going to get what happens, allows us to do some really powerful things. Specifically, we're in the business of building bespoke solutions, or bespoke solutions, I suppose, dynamically. We don't know what our users are going to do. We don't want to know. In fact, the less we know, the better. That probably means the platform's working well. So looking at this within the context of a page, for example, you have a nav bar, you have a banner, but you might not have a banner. You have a biography, but you might not have a biography. I don't know, I'm not a venue, I don't have any listings, I don't like Twitter. I do, actually, I quite like Twitter, but you go through the whole thing and you never know what's going to add up together. Now, in a traditional environment, that's really easy to build. You come up with a page structure, and in every location where we're spreading data into those components, if you imagine that's being fetched by relay, we can grab the fragments and we can load them in. But there's one problem. In the same way that React, you can just render whatever's inside as children, sadly, that doesn't work with relay. Because it's transpiled, you end up with a situation where you need to know ahead of time what the data you require in order to render any view is. Now, we looked at this and thought, OK, fine, it's a deal breaker. We can't use relay, we're going to have to roll our own. And I got quite excited at this point because, let's face it, why would you want to leverage a third-party library when you can spend weeks re-implementing something from scratch yourself badly? Well, my colleagues didn't laugh. I'm slightly disappointed. So what we then started thinking about is instead of building bespoke things dynamically, how can we build them automatically? And essentially, it's the same thing, but there's a subtle difference, I think, between something which is kind of on the fly and something which is actually declared ahead of time. It's very rare that you just kind of load a page and it kind of decides that today we're going to have a products page in this rather than having listings or something else. We know these things in advance. Unfortunately, that means that we can build them in advance. So we started thinking about how to represent this data. And the great news is we worked out that we can kind of dog food this. So in exactly the same way that we use GraphQL to serve data to our clients, we use GraphQL to represent our own structures such that we can build with them and we can interact with them. So we run a compiler process, which will take a manifest of a site and describe it in terms of the items, the components that people want on different pages, the routes that those pages exist on. And we found that whilst, admittedly, I did start writing this in JSON with just kind of free form and adding a field here and a field there and then wondering why it didn't work because I accidentally deleted the thing and because that test was kind of ignored, then that didn't really work. But by transferring over to GraphQL as the language for describing these things, you get all the benefits Pete was talking about earlier, about being able to actually reason about things as first-class citizens within our domain. Interact with them, have type safety, understand what the full repercussions are because we can actually introspect and query the model for everything that they contain themselves. Suddenly, our actual websites, the things we build, as well as the websites themselves when they fetch data, become understandable in a really simple way. We don't know what's on pages. We don't care. We don't need to know. We can explain it, and we can interact with it programmatically. Essentially, then, the compiler does something like this based on the query beforehand. It just pulls in all the edges, because it's actually a connection rather than the simplified structure, maps over them, instantiates a kind of a rendering object, renders it through to a string, and then sadly, because you can't put an array into a text file very conveniently, you've got to join it together again at the end of it. That's the bit that always makes my heart sink as this lovely pure thing ends up just being a string after all. But the moment it is a string, then we've got a JavaScript file. Fortunately, the tool chaining is absolutely excellent. We've got test suites that can run to go, OK, this dynamically generated JavaScript file, we now can test with Jest because it's just a React app. We can build the whole thing on the fly, entirely powered by the graph, and understand and reason about the whole of the concept. Sadly, we actually tried to do this using React to build React components, but the escaping of curly braces is an absolute nightmare. Turns out putting endless strings inside curly braces to actually render a curly brace out is just not cool. But if anyone can solve that for me, I will buy you a beverage of your choice afterwards. So this is kind of where we got to, which is we got 20,000 plus, when that's growing all the time, random things we've got to build. We know that we don't want to do this by having one gigantic tree of server-based templates or even a single set structure that is enforced in all our people. Yeah, you can have anything you want as long as it's got a listings component first and then maybe an optional text component after. That wasn't acceptable for us. Instead, we worked out that with the power of the graph and the power of the fact that this stuff is all just JavaScript. We can build it all dynamically ahead of time, and we auto-assemble consumers of our own platform, which has been so much fun. And the other really important thing is it's really scalable. Now, that might not sound like a scalable thing to do, essentially invoking an unlimited amount of work to keep rendering out apps that we don't know anything about and could be almost unlimitedly complex. But fortunately, and this isn't really a sales plug, but the fact it is just JavaScript means that solutions such as AWS Lambda are super easy to leverage. Again, it's just JavaScript. This stuff runs in the cloud without having to worry about it, and you end up with a perfectly compiled, tested, transpiled, and so therefore you get the strong type safety of the whole thing, solution coming out that we know we can reason about and we can interact with. The key thing, though, is this is just the start. Like, if you look through any of the GraphQL Relay projects, and even React itself, there's so much out there which is evolving so quickly. And I think the reason why we're here, rather than at LRUG, is that it's just such an incredibly exciting time to be involved with it. And if you guys, or people, sorry, I apologize, haven't had the opportunity to play with, especially the GraphQL and Relay side of things so far, I really would recommend it. It's been a revolution for us. It changes the way we think about product. It changes the way we think about building product and brings those two things closer together. So thank you very much. Any questions now or later? I'm going to let you all down and not say I'm actually, no, I am hiring. So, but obviously everyone else is as well, and I understand that, so I'm not going to plug it. But cheers, thank you so much.
Yeah, this is really interesting. Are you going to open source this or show us some code?
So we're definitely planning on open sourcing it. At the moment, we are still at a point where showing you code other than kind of just the vision of how we see this will end up going, yeah, but it's still just forgetting. And you know, obviously with the whole thing, you know, even Relay was only open sourced a very short period of time ago, and we've kind of still very early on in the process of being able to go, well, this is how it all ties together. You know, the one big thing for us is that the Babel Relay plugin is both an incredible source of assurance and strength because of being able to fail builds if they query from the wrong things in the wrong places and so on. But the downside of that is that transpiling step is something which is still kind of problematic to do in a reliable and kind of simple way. We're still trying to find alternatives to doing that, potentially building actual kind of JavaScript functions that emit compiled relay rather than kind of having them to run it through Babel as the last step.
I've seen Qsol kind of uses the file system API to like put all the transpiling in one step.
That's quite cool. It's what we really love to be able to do basically is go, okay, so we've got a framework of components that our users can pick from. And at that point in time, they all get transpiled in whatever normal way, but we don't then need to run it through the transpiler again because we can just add that stuff together kind of as JavaScript objects. We're a long way from actually working that out yet, but we're trying to think about it. I'll definitely check out that library.
Yep.
From a commercial point of view,
Yeah.
you support third-party integration. So would you only offer kind of a GraphQL interface? Would you also offer a REST interface? How easy can you, I guess, transpose the two?
That's a really good question. At the moment, our main interfaces are all outgoing rather than incoming. We are in the process of developing our first kind of public API. And within the development team, I'd say we've lobbied very hard for it being a GraphQL interface. And you know what, you get docs for any API, read them, kind of thing. I don't know that we can necessarily justify doing that yet, but it would be a real shame to have to dilute the purity of kind of thinking about it in terms of objects and in terms of types and all of that in order just to go, okay, yeah, but you can hook to the actions you really want. Stuff like that. Well, thank you. Now I will be singing. Oh no, that wasn't for that. Sorry. Anything else?
Cool.
Cheers. Cheers. Thank you all very much indeed.
So I'd like to introduce Mateusz, wherever he is, who's already set up. There you go. Mateusz, thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Am I the only one hot in here, or is it just like terribly hot? Really hot. Okay. Today I'd like to talk about React Router. Anyone of you heard about React Router? Use React? Wow. I can go home, I guess. How many of you is using 0.13 still? No many? Oh, dumb. Anyway, the talk is about upgrading from 0.13 to 1.0. My name is Mateusz Zatorski. Couple of months ago, I decided to quit my job and just work on open source full time. Good decision, but it's crazy to do in London. So I started contributing to React Router mainly, and being one of the collaborators, I can see like loads of people asking about migration to 1.0. So I thought it would be a good idea to actually show how you could upgrade your application to React Router 1.0. I've got like a quick intro to React Router. I don't know if you want to see it, just super quickly. Before that, I think we should all get this code in mind before we start building application. That's by Ryan Florence, who's one of the creators of React Router. He said, make the URL your first thought, not the afterthought. Have that in mind. Okay. The way you build application with React Router, you just declare your router, and then inside it, you just put your route, all of the routes, specify the path and the component you want to mount. Tiny bit more complicated example. This is the 1.0, by the way. In here, we kind of enclose the components inside the main app component. That means you can kind of imagine that as having a box inside a box. Anytime you inject something inside the other route. So in here, when we hit the about URL, the router is going to check out which route should we match. And then in this case, we would match the about route, which is like inside the app. So we rerun the app component and also about component. In this example, we just changed the URL. The app component stays the same. We mount the contact component. And something new I forgot to mention, in 1.0 is the index route, which used to be default route, which gets rendered together with the parent route. This is my first time using Keynote, so this was like super cool animation. Yeah. Hey, so let's go. There's like loads of stuff, so I'll just run through them quickly and then probably take your questions. Importing. We used to import router this way. Now we've decided to make the router component a property of a top-level module. So we would import it this way, or if you use the future ES6, then you just do something like that. Rendering. Before, we used to do loads of magic with like the router.run, and then it would just give you handler bug, and it was just like so much magic. I couldn't understand it. So now, as the router is using, is actually a solution for React application, we thought it would be cool to just render it as normal component. So this is the way you do it. You provide the routes as the children to the component. This is probably how you'd like it to look like, more or less. or you can, if you prefer to pass it as a property, you can just use routes and then pass them there. The route config, this is a huge change, I guess. The first one is, I never understood why they called it handler in the first place, because we're just mounting components. So now the property is called component. We got rid of named routes, which like some people didn't like it. Maybe not some, a lot of people didn't like it. But I was never a fan of them. The reasoning behind it is mainly, I think, dynamically loading route config. Sorry, just like to have too many slides. This is because if you try to dynamically load routes, your links, we might not be able to resolve the links for you, because if the routes are not mounted yet, then you can't resolve the links. You just in 1.0 you just provide the URL. You don't care about the names anymore. That's another thing. No need to know the parameters names to create it. And then there was the argument about what if you want to change your routes? What if you want to change the way your routes work? We just encourage you to use redirects instead of just swapping them around. Another thing, not found route. We got rid of that as well. Now we just use the star, which does the greedy matching, and then you just mount the no match or not found component. Redirects, they pretty much stay exactly the same as they used to be, besides the parameter. So now we just do from and to, and then you provide a parameter inside your string, inside your to property. Links, similar thing, path and params. So params are gone. So you can make use of template strings from ES6 and just provide them in the URL. Links used to provide active class with the link by default. In 1.0, we don't do that anymore. Instead of that, you need to provide your active class name with the name of your class. We decided to do that because the computation for, checking if the link is actually active was really expensive. And you pretty much don't want to do it on any link. It's just probably whether you're using the link in the navbar or not. Other links are pretty much staying without this active class name. 0.13 used to have something like route handler. Now the router automatically populates this.props.children. And if you want to pass extra, there's loads of questions about that. So like if you want to pass extra props with it, you just use the React clone element, and then you just clone the element with the new props. The huge change, I guess, was the split. So we've done the split of React router and history. So we kind of separated everything. All of the URL manipulation now are done via history module, which you can just npm install history and use it in the way which is shown in here. Okay, one more thing. Okay, Michael asked me to mention because Michael built, he's one of the co-creators of Router. He built the history module. So history module also provides you loads of cool functions like use queries, which gives you support for parsing and serializing the URL. Something like create location, which is really useful for testing. So you can basically just make your location and then do the testing on that. There's a couple mixins which are still in the React router repo, which I don't like. I don't like mixins. But this is the way we deal with stuff. So we no longer do transition to. Instead of that, we use the history module, which we still have history mix in there. So you can just do push state or replace state based on whatever you're planning to do with your URL. This is the ES6 way of doing that. So you can, if the component is not your route component, so then you need to pick up the history from the context. Context is a new thing introduced. I think it was documented recently. So you can check it out on the React docs site. State mixin. The way you used to pick up the path or parameters was using the state mixin. Now we can just do this.props.location or this.props.params. If there's not a route component, then you just pass down the location or parameters, or if not, you just use context and the location is hooked into the context. That's how we pick it up from the context. Two last things is the all of the transitions. There used to be will transition to, will transition from. Now we just provide onEnter and onLeave properties, and then you can use both of them. onEnter is being called just before we mount the component, so you can do all of the authentication and other stuff, whatever you want to do before the component gets mounted in there. So now I would actually like to go into the business and just show you how you'd upgrade to 1.0. Hopefully it works. Sorry for that. Hope it's going to work. Wow, this screen is super small. So okay, so I've got somewhere here the master detail example, which you can find probably on the router repo. What I'm going to do is copy, I think that's the way to do it. And then let's copy that to okie doke. So this is the 0.13 version of the, there's no CSS. I'm really bad with CSS, so like I didn't add any of that in here. So you can add new contacts. Kind of works. It works. That was me. That was me. Not yet. Okay. So I've got it copied in here. And now let's do some coding. Hopefully it's going to work. Anyway. Can you see anything on that? Yeah, pretty much. Do you want this font to be bigger, smaller? Is that cool? First of all, I'll change that because I don't like it. Okay, let's start from the bottom of it and then change the way we render router. So I get rid of that. And then we'll be passing router in here. That's the one thing. Wait. Then I get rid of this because we import it in a different way. So this is actually the way we're going to do it. Route and link. But before I do that, what I've got to do is actually upgrade. So we don't really need history module because React JavaScript, if you don't specify, if you don't want to use history, browser history, then we just provide you with the hash history by default. But let's use, I'll show you both. So this was the previous version, 13, change for 1.0. Okay. I'll just get rid of all of my Node modules. And this is a good thing to do. I know like we are getting, people were getting some bugs just updating the modules instead of just blowing them off and then installing them again. Okay, while this has been done, I can just go back. I change all of the vars for constants, as we don't like vars, right? Okay. The internet's slow. Okay. So as I said, we've got no handlers, so I get rid of them, change them for components. Default route is now index route. We've got no names. And the not found route or route is just going to be normal route with the greedy matching. Specify path in here as well. Okay, we're back. Index route is not defined. Oh no. Okay, we add it here. This is the live reloading, which changed my life. It's like no longer waiting for stuff to be rebuilt. Route handler is not defined, that's correct. Okay. We go to our app where we actually render all of the routes, and here it is. Instead of that, we use this.props.children. Get current params, or find that as well. Okay, I'll start from here, and then we go further down. First of all, we don't like functions. Boom. And then get rid of that. And this. Okay. So our two properties should have just a URL. So we're going to do So we have contact. Let's check it out. Routes on us again. So you have contact and then ID. that should be okay. Then this thing was contact/new. This can stay. Okay, dokes. Let's save that. Check it out. Still nothing. We don't have router on context anymore, so I got rid of that. And in here, we used to use get current params. We don't have it anymore. So what I'll do, we can pick it up from, because contact is our route component, and it's going to have the params on props. So what I do that. And I can actually pass them here, so we should have props. So we do if props, then do props, params, and then else. Okay. Same in here, we can get rid of that and just call it this.props.params. I'm almost there, promise. Okay, as I said before, we don't have transition to. We use history object to push new state. So again, we do this at props.history.push state. First element is state, which is null, and then our URL. In new contact, again, getting rid of that. We don't like that. And this is why we don't like it. So we can get rid of bind. Thank you. I just say English is not my first language. Not kidding. Contact, and then, my God. I just hope it's going to work in the end. Okay. We've got this cool live reload, so we should get something. Kind of works. No, not it. Probably is going to fail somewhere here. Oh, well, no surprise. Actually, not. I think I've done everything. Yeah, let's play around with it and see. Kind of works. Okay, can we add stuff? Yes, we can. Can we delete? Yes, it works. So. I think it's not that painful. Like lots of people on GitHub issues complain that it's super painful and they would like support for 0.13.9 or something. But I think it's like really quick. If you read, we've got really nice docs. If I can just quickly point you out. In here we've got something called changes, and we've explained everything very well in here. So if you're trying to migrate, go here. Yeah, I've got just a few more slides and I'm done. Okay. So I'd like to say we've got tons of contributors. Can you put your hand up if you contributed to React Router? Any of you? Boom, one. Oh, we need more hands, definitely. Next time I'm here, I'm going to check it out. So we got like 243 contributors as of yesterday night. Without them, we wouldn't be able to release 1.0, and like you probably wouldn't be able to use it. So thank you to all of them. And I just remember Michael, I think, showing during React Europe a slide when he was showing like just few companies using that. I actually started, because I knew I'm going to talk here, so I started the issue on GitHub, similar to what React has, with sites which are using React Router. And those are the sites. Probably what makes me happy is that we've got big companies and also like small companies, startups, people using that for their personal projects, which is super cool. And if you need any support, we are on Reactive Flux if you're still not there, or Stack Overflow. And I think that's pretty much it. Any questions? Oh my God. Sorry?
Who pays your bills?
Good question.
He's looking for a job.
No.
Hire him.
Yeah, I've just done some savings before doing this crazy move, so yeah. So yeah, I live off my savings for now. I've been consulting for the company called Marvel App. I don't know if you use them. They prototyping tool for designers. Really cool. If you haven't used them, use them. It's super cool. So they've been helping me a bit. And yeah. Any other questions? React Router related? Yeah, go on.
Hey, so you mentioned that you got a lot of contributors. You also mentioned that you got a lot of people complaining about the upgrade process. And watching you do that there, that was really awesome how you got that pretty much right first time. But I think it would be super awesome if there were like a code mod or like, JS code shift script that could transform the AST of one API into another. So
That's a really good idea.
maybe one of your 243 contributors could do that.
Want to send a PR for that?
I'm gonna do it.
Okay, I'll spend my weekend doing that. Any other questions? No? Yeah?
Do you feel now you've moved to 1.0, you've got it to a stable pattern? Because it felt a lot of the update is about setting the usage pattern rather than particularly changing the feature set.
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
You felt that that update was very much about setting the usage pattern rather than particularly changing the feature set? So do you now feel that's a relatively stable
Yeah.
pattern to get to?
So the 1.0 is the final version is finally released, and I guess like now we would focus more on features. I think last night Ryan pushed something what people were asking for, something called async props. So you can probably, I didn't have a chance to check it out because I was preparing for that, but you can just go on React and async props or something, which can be used. You can load your props asynchronously now, which might be a cool features. There's like, I know scroll management, which was missing, is coming up. There's like tons of stuff we are trying to get right. Any other questions? Done? Cool, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Matej. And yeah, thanks for all our speakers. That's it for tonight. If you want to speak at this meetup, we're always looking for speakers, especially if you need some inspiration. We've had a lot of requests for ClojureScript and OM, so if you know some stuff about that, then definitely come and speak. Believe it or not, we did actually ask David Nolan to come and speak at this meetup, and he's actually busy. He does a lot of talks. Those of us that are hiring tonight will be doing a rap battle later for your affections, so stick around for that. Otherwise, there hopefully is pizza left. And thanks to Bloomberg. They've been perfect hosts, and this is an awesome venue. So until January, thanks.